Today's video is sponsored by Vite Ramen. As I'm sure most of you know, Vite Ramen has been a very consistent supporter on this channel. I love working with them, I love their product, and I generally think the company is ran by great people. Vite Ramen is basically a premium ramen company. Sure, it's a little bit more expensive than what you'd expect to see in, say, the cheap section of the grocery store. However, Vite Ramen is much healthier than the average ramen, it's delicious, and it comes with a personal recommendation from me. If you want to check out some of their products, you can go to shop.viteramen.com, but if you're smart, you go to shop.viteramen.com/Star Wars and use the discount code Star Wars so you can get 15% off. With that 15%, you can purchase an individual pack, or what I would recommend, a variety pack, so you can try out different flavors. I've had more than any other sponsorship I've done so far on this channel, so much positive feedback from you guys, so if you went ahead and tried Vite Ramen, let me know. I'm always curious to hear what you think. So again, thanks to the company, and let's roll the intro. Hey guys, this is EckhartsLadder. Hello and welcome to another Star Wars The Rise of Skywalker video. Now, of course, if you haven't seen the movie yet, there will be spoilers within, so come back later. But hey, maybe drop a like and a subscription before you leave. So, everyone knew that episode 9 would have a major space battle because, well, the sequel trilogy hasn't had that yet. Hopes were high when a trailer showed what looked like hundreds or perhaps thousands of resistance ships facing off against a mighty fleet of Star Destroyers. And even in the very first trailer, keen eyes could see what appeared to be the bridge of an Imperial One, with a fighter flying by. So why did this space battle happen? Did it make sense? Who were the two sides at play? And did I like it? That's what we'll discuss during today's video. Now, of course, I can't use movie footage for today's video. There is a cam version of the movie online. I'm not going to link it down below, but aside from seeing the movie in theaters, I did review it for making this video. Please don't tell the mouse. And basically my point is here, don't expect to see everything that I'm talking about appear on screen. You'll have to take my work for it. Anyway, it's revealed in episode 9 that Palpatine has returned and is leading a new faction known as the Sith Eternal, which itself has a final order involving hundreds or perhaps thousands of incredibly powerful Star Destroyers. Initially, we all thought that these were modified Imperial Ones. However, they are in fact the Zeiston class Star Destroyer. Aside from being 2,400 meters instead of 1,600 and having the massive axial super laser, the Zeiston class seemed to lack a hangar and had a different weapons configuration. Anyway, the Resistance learns about the existence and the deadly potential of this fleet, and they strike out with a raid against the Exegol system. Their plan is basically twofold. One, they're trying to destroy various relays and communications towers, which are meant to help the fleet navigate out of the unknown regions into space, and they're also trying to damage and destroy as many of these Star Destroyers as possible, because while stationed over Exegol, they're not able to fully use their shields. So the attack comes in two waves. First of all, a small resistance strike team, I'd guess you call it, strikes out from the base using navigational data provided by Rey and leads a raid primarily against the navigation towers. This is where I start having problems. First of all, I think it's really cool seeing this very small resistance fleet maneuvering among these massive Star Destroyers. There's a line that just purely makes no sense when Allegiant Pride says fire the ion cannons, then the Star Destroyers fire all of their guns. But generally I think the battle starts off pretty strong because there's a good narrative, we understand the target of the team, and the Sith fleet has an interesting aesthetic. Again, I can't show it, but the uniforms of those working on the Star Destroyers are very cool. The new TIE daggers to me sort of act like the Dark Empire's TIE droids, as sort of a very good TIE fighter produced en masse, and I like that Poe leads the charge with R2 as his astromech. However, the issue that I didn't like is the fact that they're trying to take out a specific target, and their plan is to identify it from the air, then to destroy it with a ground team. And when the team gets into position, the First Order just moves the transmitter to Pride's Star Destroyer, and they never really discuss or even talk about blowing the Star Destroyer up by conventional means, which I think would almost certainly be much easier than landing on the ship itself and trying to blow it up that way. I mean, they've got B-Wings and Y-Wings Y-wings in this fleet, as well as a CR-90. I mean, worst case scenario, just ram the damn transport into the Star Destroyer's bridge. It would totally be worth it. But regarding that idea, the navigational data being so important, I think that actually does work because the majority of the film is concerned with how difficult it is to navigate to Exegol, and it sort of fits in with the rest of what we know about the unknown regions. If it had just been some random planet and the movie hadn't focused on the navigational hazards or whatever, then it would have been a total cop-out, but in this case I think it does work. Regarding fleet composition, I think it makes total sense that the Dark Empire, the Sith Eternal, use ships of only one type. They're extremely powerful, probably too much so, and that's worth talking about on a different day, but it works as sort of the product of an unknown secret project. Anyway, even though I think it's a little silly, landing on the Star Destroyer ends up being a really cool scene. I love the design of the Sith Troopers. We get a cool reference to repulsor lift jamming, which is something that has sort of existed in the EU, but certainly never in main movies. And again, just generally some good action. However, it's at this point that the battle really goes downhill, in my opinion. I think in Star Wars, a really good space battle can be done in a few ways. First of all, we have Rogue One, where the battle itself is a narrative. You know what the rebels need to do, you know how they want to do it, you can see what tactics work, what doesn't, and by the end, the battle itself has been a story. That's really fun and a really enjoyable way to set your space battle up. Arguably, Revenge of the Sith is sort of like that too, however it's more focused on Obi-Wan and Anakin, with the battle being more of a backdrop. However, then you also have Return of the Jedi, which is good because of the scale of the set pieces. We see lots of up-close shots of large ships, we see lots of fighter battles. There is a loose narrative as the Alliance changes tactics, but generally the quality of the battle itself comes from the fact that there's so many cool shots done in interesting ways, and the battle has a real sense of speed and weight to it, if that makes sense. The problem with this battle is, although the intro starts off well, the second the large fleet arrives, it kind of just goes to hell. First of all, the fact that Lando and Chewie were able to wrangle up so many forces in only a few hours is hard to believe, especially when the Resistance has been trying to gain allies for over a year. But then the supposed ragtag group of ships comes out, and here's my first complaint. This fleet is basically just existing CG models that they had available, copy and pasted across the screen. I mean, if you look really closely, of course you see lots of Nebulon Bs, you see MC-75s from Rogue One, MC-85s from The Last Jedi, but also ships like the Bunker Buster, which just shouldn't exist in such large numbers, or Han's Freighter from The Force Awakens, which shouldn't be in the battle once, and certainly not a few dozen times. It's really hard to tell based on the cam version, and I wasn't able to look closely enough in the theaters, but it also seems like there might even be the ships that were created for the Hosnian Prime scene in TFA, which makes more sense, but my second biggest problem is we get no real detail. Revenge of the Sith and Return of the Jedi both go out of the way to give us glamour shots of the various spaceships. In Revenge of the Sith, they fly by a Venator to start off the battle. In Return of the Jedi, they fly past Home 1 to start the battle. In this, however, we get just a really ludicrously wide shot of everything, and to the degree where it's impossible to see any real detail. In this case, the sheer numbers actually ends up being a disadvantage. I would have much preferred it to just be a few dozen large capital ships, which we really get to take a look at. Either way, to me, it's really problematic that the fleet is made up of Bunker Busters and CR-90s and Nebulon Bs predominantly, not only from a visual perspective, but also based on the idea that this is supposed to be a ragtag fleet. It's supposed to be various forces from the Galactic Core, but instead we have what looks like just a larger version of the Resistance fleet. I would have loved to see Star Destroyers and weird fighters and Corellian ships and whatever else, basically to represent, sort of like in the final battle of Mass Effect, that this is various planets coming together to fight a greater enemy. The problem with this though is you can take any one section of this massive fleet and basically duplicate it to create the entire armada. Anyway, we get some really cool starfighter action, we get some glory shots of the Star Destroyers being blown up. Then of course, Palpatine, in a very Dark Empire-esque fashion, temporarily disables the majority of the fleet with a massive Force lightning attack. As a fan of Dark Empire, I thought this was really cool, and I thought it fit Palpatine's growing powers quite nicely. It was maybe a little too similar to Return of the Jedi, with him opening the viewport for Rey to look at as an attempt to make her fall to the dark side, but I think that criticism is probably outside the scope of today's video. I mean, we get some cool scenes, there's some nice banter, we get Wedge, there's some shots of starfighters blowing up the cannons, but really nothing from the capital ships. Even the Ghost doesn't really get much action other than being in the background. The same is true of the Colossus, which I thought was supposed to be in the movie. The final shot shows familiar ships joining the Falcon, the X-Wings, and jumping away from Exegol, and by the time they land on the Resistance base, we do get a few new ship designs, but in my opinion, it's too little too late. The space battle was by far a background for everything else that was going on, and that was true in Return of the Jedi, and I understand why it's true here. However, if you're going to do something, and if you're going to do it with such a large scale, you might as well at least get it right. The battle needs a narrative. It needs to feel like the assets in play actually matter. You need to see things happening, and you can't just have the battle go from point A to point B, i.e. a massive fleet to the massive fleet falling to the ground, without really showing why. I mean, we get a bit of what's going on, but I would have loved to see that massive fleet, which is supposed to bring hope to the battle, actually do something. I think it was a pretty wasted opportunity, and all in all, I was pretty disappointed with the space battle in episode 9. And to be honest, I'm pretty simple. Even if the movie had been the worst of all time, as long as it had a good space battle, I would have been content. So yeah, this is disappointing. However, that's just my opinion. Curious to hear what you guys think. Leave me a comment down below. I try to read literally all of them, and I'll heart some that I like. However, guys, that's all I have for you today. Until next time, have a great day, and may the Force be with you.